After 4 rounds of elections in 4 years, it can be hard to make out how this time around is different from previous rounds. But for Ariel from the Bedouin township of Abu Tlul, it's very clear what's at stake.
What's different this time for the Bedouin voters is the fear that Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich will rise to power and form a government with Benjamin Netanyahu.
El-Assam believes that a government that couples the Likud and far-right religious Zionism parties would lead to a vigorous persecution campaign against Bedouins.
The Bedouins in Israel are the most deprived community in the country. There is wild and deceitful incitement against us. They will make our lives here miserable.
Mounting crime rates in Bedouin communities and the inability of authorities to govern large areas in the Negev desert have placed the Bedouins at the center of some of the party's campaigns. El-Assam says previous governments have consistently made his life and that of over 250,000 Bedouins miserable using administrative tactics such as home demolitions and neglecting infrastructure. But for the roughly 90,000 Bedouins living in dozens of unauthorized villages scattered across the Negev desert, this also has direct implications on their right to vote.
The polling stations are not accessible to Bedouin voters. They have to travel long distances to the nearest polling station, and the state doesn't allow placing them in schools in the unrecognized villages. Therefore, a large percentage of the people don't go out to vote.
Voter turnout among Bedouins living in unauthorized villages stood at 32% in the last elections, compared to 46% in authorized townships. But that's a lot lower than the national voting rate, which stood at 67%. For the residents in the area who came to the mosque at Wadi El Naam, an unauthorized village, this is nothing short of voter suppression.
This makes it very difficult for people. Take, for example, the polling station in Segev Shalom. For some, that's very far. There are no buses, no infrastructure.
El Danfiri lives 10 miles away from his designated polling station. But for thousands others, that trip can get a lot longer, sometimes up to 40 miles each way.
This situation makes me prefer to stay home rather than go out and vote. It's hard for me, you see?
For 93-year-old Hussein Abu Suwailam, it's a passionate subject.
Are we Israeli citizens or not? Do we belong to Israel or not? Tell me.
Of course you belong.
So why the discrimination? These are Arabs and these are Jews. We were here even before there was a state of Israel.
Bedouins living in unauthorized villages in the Negev are registered to vote according to their tribal ballot, meaning their designated polling station is determined by their tribal affiliation, regardless of where they live. Israel's election committee recently denied appeals to allow placing polling stations in unauthorized villages, saying that such a change requires new legislation. And despite Parliament holding multiple sessions on the matter this past year, for locals like Abu Suwailam, the reason for this policy is clear. So why do you think this is a situation?
Why? Racism. The government should represent togetherness. This government does not represent that.
Improving the living conditions of Negev Bedouins was a major campaign pitch by Ra'am party leader Mansour Abbas in the previous elections, with conservative Bedouin communities a key base. While some see no difference between the governments, Ariel, who represents unrecognized Bedouin villages, is hopeful for the future.
I feel that over the past year, under this so-called change government, we made a first step on the right path, and we need to continue until we reach equality.